Hello and welcome to Art Masters with me, Mrs. Portia. Today we will be doing art based on an artist, Piet Mondrian. And he kind of started doing a new art, and it was dedicated to the basic art elements like line, shape, and color. So he used primary colors like red, blue, and yellow. And they're primary colors because you can't mix colors to make these colors, right? He liked to use line, really exciting line. But the biggest reason we can call this art is based on his design and composition, where he finds balance. So that's something we're going to be working with today, is figuring out how to balance our art. And then we're going to evaluate the art, where we could look at each other's art and see what we like and how things were made balanced. So today we're going to be creating our own Mondrian masterpiece using shape, line, and design. And the artist, that's you, is going to have to decide when the piece is balanced. And when we add more shapes, it changes the balance of the design. So go ahead and grab your supplies, and then we're going to get started with our design. So once you have all of your supplies, we're going to create a little bit of space, and we're just going to have our shapes, our primary color squares, and our gray paper. And we're going to talk a little bit about balance. So Mondrian actually called his paintings compositions. Compositions are just the arrangement of parts, or the plan for our art. They were basically serious studies relating to balance, color, and line. So that's what we're going to be working on, is balance. What am I talking about? Let me give you an example. So let's say I put a shape there. Visually, that does not look right. There's all this space here. This color has weight, and it's drawing your eye, and it's making this art seem like it just doesn't seem right. So now I'm going to add a shape there. Oh, that balances out my composition. But that's a little boring. So let's say you have a weight here. If I have that there, that seems like it's heavy. It's going that way. If I add my shape here, now it's a balanced scale, but that looks pretty symmetrical and boring. What if I move that shape there? That's much more interesting. So it's balanced and it's a little asymmetrical, so it's interesting. This whole project is kind of like a study of design elements like balance and line. So the first thing we're going to do is just lay out our composition. This is your creative time. Watch me for an example, and then you can go off and do it. You guys have all these strips, and as I said, color has weight. So when you add lines, you can see which line looks the heaviest. Visually, which line looks the heaviest? To me, it's this red one. This red line seems heavier, like it's pulling this art down. So I would probably present this art this way. When I turn it around, your eye is leaning that way. So just keep that in mind when you overlap colors, that colors have a visual perception of weight. So you're going to lay out your design thinking about weight. I don't want all my colors down here. I want it balanced. You don't want it perfectly symmetrical. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to take your shapes and lay them out without glue in a way that looks nice. Then you're going to... Okay, so once you have some idea, you've messed around a little bit with your shapes, you can see I cut my shape. I'm still keeping them square because Mondrian did square and rectangles. And then you kind of saw how I could imagine what my lines would look like. So I'm going to kind of say I'm somewhat happy with my balance, with my large shapes. So I'm going to use a glue stick today. You could also use regular glue, Sometimes I just like to use the regular glue to finish and use a glue stick to place because it gives you a quicker way to see things. So right now I'm going to glue my large shapes down. So go ahead and glue your large shapes down, and then we're going to get to our lines. Okay, so once you have your large shapes down, we're going to start laying out our lines. So again, Mondrian liked to frame his work. So kind of like this, you see the squares are framed. And he also overlapped lines. So like this goes over and then under. So we're going to kind of be messing around with overlapping and framing, and then remembering that certain colors have more weight, like the red. So if I put yellow against yellow, that's not very exciting. So I'm going to put it against the red. These are things to think about. Again, I'm just laying out my idea, and it might change a little bit once I actually glue down. And you're going to be mindful of these heavier colors, like the red and the blue. And you can also go under and over. So go ahead and kind of explore with this idea, and then you can glue it down, and then we can go over adding a little bit more details. Great job. At this point, you should have your large shapes glued down and some lines going on where you think maybe you're close to being finished. Now's the time to step back and evaluate. As an artist, you always want to take breaks and step back and look at your art. Right now, my eye is going, these two shapes kind of seem unfinished to me. They need a little bit more something. This one seems like it's floating, and my eye is just being drawn to this big empty space. So I'm going to turn my composition around. I kind of like it better this way, but again, it's heavier here. And then this just isn't working for me. My eye's being drawn to here. This looks like it's floating. There's a lot of negative space, so I'm going to need to add some more weight. So this next step, you're going to be evaluating your composition and seeing where do you need more weight? Where do you need more balance? If you have extra squares, you can ask for an extra square, but you don't want too many squares, so you might just need one little extra thing. But I'm going to show you a trick. So if you look at Mondrian's reproduction, he has, it looks like a lot of overlapping lines and tiny squares. So if you have any scraps, you could always glue the scraps and cut some tiny squares just to add some, it's going to add weight and it's going to add some dynamic. It might even take away some of the weight because you're breaking it up. So you could do this. This is the meticulous way. A little bit messy. Or if you have an extra square, you can put the strips on this square, and then you're going to cut the strips. And now you have a couple of interesting shapes you can add to balance out your design. So you could either cut the little strips like I did, or you can glue strips on your square. If there's an extra square, you can ask for an extra square, and then you're going to cut some of these to add. You don't have to do this part. This is optional, but you do need to evaluate your work and see where maybe you need to balance out the weight using line or shape. Awesome job, you guys. Now you should have a more detailed, balanced looking composition. So once you've added some more lines and details and you're feeling like it looks pretty good, you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna turn it around and see if there's anywhere that needs fixing. And I hope you noticed, I don't know if you could tell when I was fast forwarding, but I would overlap and underlap. And then when I added a shape, like these little ones, it changed the balance. So I had to add another shape. So every time you add an element, you have to step back and look because you might need to balance it out somewhere. So at this point, you should be finishing up, doing one last visual balance check. And then you should have some large paper, whether it's black or red, and you're going to glue your finished piece. You're going to glue your Piet Mondrian tag on the back and put your name on the back. And as an added little bonus, Piet Mondrian used to put his initials and he would number his composition. So this is optional. But if you actually look at the reproduction in the room, if you have it, there's a small PM, his initials, and then in another square, he has the number of his composition. So we're gonna do that. You could either use, I'm gonna use a black pen today. Black colored pencil would probably be fine. And I'm gonna put my initials somewhere very tiny, maybe right in this box right here. And I'm going to put my favorite number and number my design. So I hope you guys have time at the end of class to maybe hang up or show your work so you guys can evaluate each other's composition, talk about the balance, and maybe even turn it different directions and see if you like the balance better. Great job with your composition from Piet Mondrian. Great job today, everyone, making your compositions. Things that we learned and that we can evaluate about each other's work once they're finished. And you could discuss what makes this interesting and unique. So I hope you guys enjoyed your Mondrian project and you learned about balance using primary colors, lines, and designs.